Season 1 of The Bear introduces Carmen Berzatto, an award-winning chef who leaves behind his burgeoning career in New York City to return to his hometown of Chicago following the death of his brother Michael. Michael had a long-standing drug problem and a history of getting himself into deeper and deeper trouble, eventually leading him to thinking that dying was his only way out. Michael has left behind his rundown restaurant, The Original Beef, which Carmy takes ownership of and runs alongside Michael's lifelong best friend Richie, affectionately known as Cousin. Carmy's years of tutelage under the greatest chefs in the world have made him extremely passionate and particular about the art of cooking, and his new standards immediately clash with the stubborn and abrasive Richie and the rest of the beef staff, including the line cooks Tina and Ibra, the baker Marcus, and resident handyman and wannabe employee Neil Fack. Carmy makes massive changes to the restaurant's cooking methods and menu despite Richie's resistance, and teaches the staff the respect in calling each other chef, though Tina passive-aggressively refers to Carmy as Jeff. As Carmy tries to whip the staff of the beef into shape and revitalize his brother's business, he must also contend with the massive debt Michael owed to their late father's best friend known as Uncle Cicero. In addition to owing Cicero $300,000, Michael also left the restaurant's taxes in disarray, which Carmy is forced to fix with the help of his sister Natalie. Carmy is also left baffled by many of Michael's business decisions, including buying excessive amounts of smaller cans of tomatoes instead of larger, cheaper cans in bulk. And to make matters even more complicated for Carmy's mission to keep the beef open, he discovers that Richie has been selling drugs in the restaurant's parking lot, which puts the entire business in jeopardy of being shut down for good. But things eventually start turning around at the beef due to Carmy's passion and resilience. Sydney Adamu is an aspiring chef long inspired by Carmy's rise in the restaurant world, who takes a job as his sous chef at the beef and quickly earns his trust. Throughout their working relationship, Sydney earns Carmy's respect and becomes his equal partner in running the beef and turning it into something special. Sydney is impatient and stubborn, at first butting heads with the rest of the staff, but eventually winning their respect. Under Carmy's tutelage, Marcus finds a passion for pastries and begins developing his own recipes and menus. Despite initial reluctance, Tina eventually takes to the beef's new ways and begins to thrive under the new responsibilities and work ethic. She finds a new drive and spark that she thought she lost years ago, and finally begins calling Carmy chef out of respect, although she still occasionally calls him Jeff as a term of endearment. In the end, it's only Richie who remains stuck in the past, left worried that he serves no purpose in the new order of the beef, and that he will be left behind as it forges a new future. Despite this newfound success, Carmy's excessive work ethic has left him little time to emotionally process his brother's death, leading him to violent outbursts and mood swings. During an especially chaotic rush of orders, Carmy finally snaps, exploding on his staff, neglecting his partnership with Sydney, and admonishing Marcus's work on a donut that Carmy had inspired him to perfect. In response, Sydney and Marcus both quit, and Carmy finally realizes he needs to seek outside help. He attends a meeting for family members of addicts where he finally unleashes all of the emotions he has kept bottled up. The love of cooking he first shared growing up with his brother, the wedge driven between them by Michael's secret drug habit, the bitterness of Michael never allowing Carmy to work with him at the beef. Carmy finally realizes that his unrelenting desire to restore the beef is actually his own misguided attempt to restore his relationship with his late brother. With this breakthrough, Carmy apologizes and reconciles with his staff, leading to Marcus and Sydney returning to work. As the season comes to a close, Richie gives Carmy a letter he found that was written by Michael before his death. Addressed to Carmy, the letter encourages him to let it rip, and contains the recipe for Michael's Berzatto family spaghetti dish. As Carmy cooks his brother's signature meal using the small cans of tomatoes, he discovers that they all contain bags of money, adding up to the entire amount that Michael owed to Cicero. As Carmy serves his Berzatto family meal to his makeshift family, he announces his desire to close the beef and use the money to open a new restaurant they could all build together, a restaurant named The Bear. I want to cut in real quick and thank this video's sponsor, Polybuzz, which allows me to simulate a chat with Chef Carmy himself. What's your favorite recipe? The coq au vin reminds me of my Nona's kitchen, though Sydney says I should work on the presentation. She's right. How do I make that? First, you take 3 different types of chicken. Each piece needs its own bath. Lemon thyme for the thighs, herb butter for the breast, and classic pan-seared for the wings. How's Mikey? He's around at the bar mostly, helping with deliveries. I thought he was dead. He was for a while. He came back to life? Yeah, some people do that. They come back when you least expect it. Or want it. Well, that got weird, but now that my dinner plans are settled, I can check out all of the other chat options on Polybuzz. And they have so many different options to choose from, including all of your favorite characters from your favorite movies, TV shows, anime, and more. And you can even create your own character to chat with. Maybe one who's like super cool and handsome and relatable and has similar interests to you. What's the best channel on YouTube? Without hesitation, Recap and Chill. I made it myself, I know, but seriously, if you're a movie/TV fan, that's where you should be. So try Polybuzz today. It's in the App Store, you can access it via web browser, so share it with your friends. And if you use my code CHILL77, you can gain access to some premium features. Polybuzz makes it super easy. Just download the app and literally just type in CHILL77 to the search bar, and the promo code is applied. So go try Polybuzz right now while watching the rest of this recap, and I'm gonna go see what Chef Sydney's up to. In season 2 of The Bear, Carmy makes Sydney his official partner and equal in the new restaurant, but they both quickly realize that this new venture will be much harder than either of them dreamt. They ask Cicero for another loan with the promise of paying it back within 18 months, or else they will turn over the entire property to him. This forces the Bear staff to massively speed up their plans to get the new restaurant open within 3 months. To do so, Carmy brings in Natalie as project manager to whip the staff into shape and secure all of the necessary permits that could make or break the entire business. As Fack spearheads the restaurant renovations, the rest of the former beef staff prepares for their new roles at the Bear. Tina and Ibra go to culinary school, where Tina is excited about the prospect of learning new skills, while Ibra is stuck in his old ways and drops out. As Carmy and Sydney look for a new sous chef, Sydney realizes that Tina's hard work and growth has earned her the position and offers her the job. Marcus is sent to Copenhagen to train under the skilled pastry chef Luca, who previously worked with and became inspired by Carmy's own culinary skills. Marcus learns a great deal from Luca and returns to Chicago with a renewed drive and burgeoning romantic feelings for his biggest supporter, Sydney. Meanwhile, Richie's life crumbles around him, including his marriage officially ending, his relationship with his daughter straining, and his usefulness to the new Bear restaurant seemingly non-existent. Carmy sends Richie to stage at Ever, one of the best fine dining restaurants in Chicago, which Richie first thinks is just a ruse to get rid of him. But Richie is soon completely captivated by the passion the staff of Ever display for their craft and their care for their customers. Richie finally understands the deep emotional impact a transcendent dining experience can leave a patron with, and he returns to the Bear a completely changed man. He has passion in his life again. He has a new structure and code, and also he wears suits now. As Sydney puts all of herself into ensuring the Bear's opening will be perfect, she begins to grow resentful toward Carmy's lack of focus. She has experienced failure at starting her own catering business before, and has put a lot of pressure on herself to not fail again. At seemingly the worst time possible, Carmy finally tries to do the healthy thing and pursue a life outside of the kitchen. He begins to date his childhood crush Claire, much to the excitement of his lifelong friends Richie and Fack. Carmy tries to further come to terms with his relationship with his late brother Michael, but also his relationship with his volatile and unstable mother Donna. Carmy and his sister Natalie grow closer as they work on the Bear together, and are overjoyed when Natalie reveals that she is pregnant, despite her well-meaning husband Pete being seen as lame by everyone. As the season comes to a close, the staff of the Bear prepare for its opening night. Ibra returns and reconciles with his work family, and is placed in charge of running the restaurant's takeout sandwich window. Carmy gives Sydney her own monogram chef's coat, and Fack is officially promoted from sometimes handyman to full-time staff. As the first night of service begins, Carmy accidentally locks himself in the walk-in freezer due to his relationship with Claire distracting him from fixing the latch. Despite missing Carmy, Richie and Sydney successfully run the front of house and kitchen in expert fashion, pulling off a perfect night for all of their patrons. Despite being invited to experience her children's success, Donna Berzatto can't bring herself to actually enter the Bear and take part in such a joyous occasion with the family she has pushed away. As Claire goes to congratulate her boyfriend on a successful opening, an unaware Carmy rants about his own self-loathing and how he has let his relationship with Claire ruin his dedication to his restaurant, causing him to miss the entire opening night. Claire is devastated by Carmy's harsh words and tearfully leaves, while Carmy is left feeling even more guilty that he has ruined his relationship with the dream girl who loves him. But despite Carmy's dismay, Sydney leaves the night feeling less anxious about potential failure and more confident than ever about the Bear's future. In Season 3 of The Bear, Carmy is forced to reckon with the fallout of his breakdown while locked inside the walk-in freezer. He apologizes to Sydney for abandoning her on such an important night, grapples with the ending of his relationship with Claire, and is left with a broken relationship with Richie, who refuses to forgive him for all of the harsh words that he said. Carmy then throws his entire self into making the Bear perfect and earning a Michelin star, creating a list of non-negotiables that only cause further friction. Carmy wants to create a new menu every single night, forcing his staff to constantly learn the new dishes and driving up expenses due to the larger variety of ingredients needed. This greatly stresses Natalie and Cicero, who fear that the Bear is on the brink of financial disaster. And as Carmy is solely focused on the food he makes, Richie argues over his neglect of what truly matters to their business, the customers. As Carmy and Richie's animosity toward each other builds into physical fights, Sydney grows concerned over the restaurant's volatility. When Carmy offers her a contract that gives her a stake in the restaurant, she hesitates in signing it out of fear of attaching herself to toxicity and failure. The head chef of Terry then announces the abrupt closure of the beloved restaurant. This shocks both Carmy and Richie, who view Terry as a mentor and North Star for the Bear. If not even ever can sustain itself with its perfect quality, how could the Bear ever hope to survive? Chef Adam Shapiro plots to open his own restaurant and offers Sydney the chance to partner with him, promising more respect and money than she currently receives from the Bear. As Sydney weighs her options, Carmy constantly ignores her wishes and culinary input, driving Sydney closer to taking the job with Adam. Meanwhile, Marcus grieves the death of his mother, and the staff of the Bear step up as a found family to comfort him. Marcus wants to use his passion for baking to take his mind off of the loss, and encourages Carmy's unrelenting drive. To help save the financially struggling restaurant, Cicero brings in his loyal accountant, the Computer, who suggests large-scale changes to the Bear's business, including firing Marcus, as the fine dining restaurant does not need its own dedicated pastry chef. Natalie shuts down the suggestion to remain loyal to Marcus. Richie struggles with his feelings over his ex-wife Tiffany getting engaged to a new man named Frank, who seems to embody all of the positive attributes that Richie lacks. As Tina struggles under the newfound stresses at the Bear, she thinks back on the first time she met Mikey while struggling with unemployment. Mikey offered her a job at the Original Beef, and Tina learned how the power of food can unite people. When Natalie abruptly goes into labor, she fails to get in contact with any of her closest family, including her husband Pete, her brother Carmy, or even her quasi-cousin Richie. And so, Natalie is reluctantly forced to call on her estranged mother Donna for assistance. Despite Natalie's fears, Donna proves herself a great emotional support system and proclaims her desire to be a better mother. As Natalie and Donna finally reconcile their relationship, Pete arrives at the hospital to be by his wife's side and meet their new baby. Neil Fack and his brother Teddy Fack make it their mission to prepare the Bear for the arrival of food critics, as great reviews are vital for the restaurant's survival. Despite this, a critic arrives without the staff realizing, and when a photographer later stops by to take pictures of the dishes, the staff struggles to recreate the food, as they no longer have the ingredients due to the constantly changing menu. A reluctant Cicero is then forced to warn Carmy that due to the spiraling cost of the restaurant, he will need to pull out his investment in the Bear if the review is negative. As Carmy anxiously awaits the review's publication, Neil and Teddy Fack incessantly encourage him to apologize to Claire in the hopes of reconciliation. And although Claire confesses to the Fack brothers that she would be open to giving Carmy another chance, she insists that she would need to hear an apology from him first. As the season comes to a close, Carmy, Richie, and Sydney attend the closing dinner at Ever, where they are joined by other world-renowned chefs, including Carmy's old friend Luca, as well as Carmy's former mentor and tormentor, Chef David Fields, who has instilled all of the pressure and anxiety that consumes his life. Having had his life changed by the experience of staging at Ever, Richie decides to help his friends Renee, Garrett, and Jessica run the dinner service for a final time. Meanwhile, Carmy finally works up the will to confront David, finding some catharsis by admonishing him for the abuse he was put through in his tutelage. David coldly dismisses Carmy's words, claiming he only did what was necessary to turn him into an excellent chef. Sydney runs into Adam, who asks for an update on his offer to join his restaurant, but Sydney is still struggling over her loyalty to the bear, her belief in its potential despite all of its current issues, and the toxic relationship that she has formed with Carmy, which unfortunately closely models the traumatic relationship he resents Chef David Fields for. Chef Terry closes the night with an inspiring speech about the importance of valuing customers over food, then insists to Carmy that he values a life outside of the kitchen. Instilled with a new outlook on life, Carmy discovers that the restaurant review has finally been published. As he quickly scans the review, Carmy is struck by all that is said, positives and the many negatives, leaving him wondering if the bear is good enough to survive. In Season 4 of The Bear, the Chicago Tribune review of The Bear praises the food, and especially the beef sandwich window, but criticizes the lack of consistency due to an ever-changing menu and the chaos that inevitably spills out of the kitchen. To make matters worse, Cicero announces that the computer has calculated that the restaurant only has 2 months of financial runway left, during which time the bear will have to turn a profit or close down for good. Cicero suggests that earning a coveted Michelin star within those 2 months could be the boost that the restaurant needs to turn its business around. And to prove how invested Cicero is in the financial well-being of the bear, he turns to Donna to help sell his house. To lower expenses, Carmy and Sydney begin simplifying the menu to only a few components made with limited ingredients. Sydney creates a new scallop dish, which Carmy praises and places on the bear's new permanent menu. After a lot of self-reflection, Carmy is able to admit that his plan for an ever-rotating menu was born out of his own selfishness. Sydney still struggles over whether to work at Adam Shapiro's new restaurant, where she has been promised control and autonomy, or remain loyal to the bear, where Carmy is finally relenting control and trusting her instincts. Richie hires his friends Jess, Garrett, and Renee from Ever to help the bear's staff work more efficiently. With nothing seeming to be going right in his personal life, Richie devotes all that he has to the bear, going to extreme lengths like staging a snow-filled winter wonderland outside of the restaurant just to make his patrons feel special. In his own life, Richie struggles with a decision over whether or not he should attend the wedding of his ex-wife Tiffany and her fiancé Frank. Richie confesses to Jess that he has concerns about the seemingly perfect life that Frank can provide, leaving Richie to wonder what he has to offer his and Tiffany's daughter Evie. The stress of running the bear leads to Carmy failing to visit his sister Natalie and meeting his newborn niece Sophie. In his new effort to be less consumed by perfection, Carmy visits Claire to apologize for his past actions, and finally opens up to her about all of his anxieties. Natalie then brings Sophie to the bear to finally meet Carmy, bestows words of encouragement to her brother, and insists that he attend Tiffany and Frank's wedding, even if it means interacting with their estranged mother, Donna. Natalie has her own concerns for the wedding when Neil Fack reveals that his sister Francie Fack, Natalie's friend turned sworn enemy, will also be in attendance. Meanwhile, with the beef sandwich window being hailed as the best part of the bear and the only profitable part of the business, its manager Ebra seeks mentorship from a business consultant named Albert Schnurr, who sees great potential in franchising the beef. Following the death of his mother, Marcus gets help from his friend Chester in selling her home, putting finality on her passing. Carmy then hires his old friend Luca to stage at the bear to help Marcus with his increasingly noteworthy pastries. Thanks to the support of his friends, Marcus is named by Food and Wine magazine in their list of best new chefs. Tina strives for perfection and sets pressure on herself to cook a pasta dish in under 3 minutes. As she struggles with this self-imposed mission, Luca encourages her to harness the pressure instead of fearing it, leading her to finally achieving her goal. Everyone then comes together for the wedding of Tiffany and Frank. Natalie and Francie confront each other, revealing that the dissolution of their friendship was due to them sleeping together, though now they manage to reconcile. Carmy runs into his mother's on-again, off-again boyfriend Lee, Evie, who reveals how proud Mikey was of his little brother before his death, and insists that Donna is making real strides in becoming a better person. Proving this point, Donna remains sober at the wedding, and though she doesn't reconcile with Carmy, she is heartened by Sydney's words of working with him in the kitchen. Carmy and Claire then further mend their relationship by sharing a dance together. Frank seeks Richie's help in consoling Evie, who hides under a table due to nerves over a planned public dance with Frank. Frank proves to Richie that despite having a perfect life from the outside, he envies the special relationship that Richie has with his daughter. Richie and Frank comfort Evie under the table, and soon they are joined by Claire, Carmy, Sydney, Natalie, Francie, Pete, Tiffany, Stevie, Neil and Ted Fack, and even Ted's new girlfriend Kelly, Marcus, and Marcus's friend Chester. They all profess their personal fears to Evie, helping her overcome her own. In the end, Richie and Tiff share a dance, finally in a place of happiness for each other. Richie leaves the wedding realizing that his life is meaningful due to the way he connects those he loves most. Following the wedding, Carmy visits his mother for the first time in years. Donna apologizes for all of her past actions and announces that she is 1 year sober, all in the hopes of reconciling her relationship with her family. In turn, Carmy cooks for his mother for the first time, inviting her to be a part of his life. As the season comes to a close, Pete informs Sydney that Carmy has removed himself as partner of the Bear, leaving ownership to her, Natalie, and Cicero. Sydney confronts Carmy for what she feels is abandoning her with a failing restaurant, but Carmy explains that he had thrown his life into being a chef to avoid facing his own personal issues, and now he wants to figure out who he is outside of the kitchen. In Sydney, Carmy sees a talented chef who can lead the Bear to a higher level of greatness than he ever could. Carmy then fully reconciles with Richie, leading to the two finally airing out all of their emotions surrounding Mikey's death. Sydney ultimately agrees to stay on at the Bear on the condition that Richie also be made a partner, and so Carmy says goodbye to the Bear, knowing he is leaving it in the best possible hands. The story continues in a one-off special known as Gary. As Richie reels from the new status of the Bear, he reflects back on a work trip he took years prior with his best friend Mikey. That trip was marked with the highs of the pair's family-like bond and the lows of Mikey's self-destructive mental health struggles, leading to him calling out Richie for his inevitable future failures as a father. Mikey's tirade leads to the duo returning home late, forcing Richie to miss the birth of his daughter Evie. In the present, as Richie contemplates his mercurial friendship with the late Mikey, he gets distracted while driving and is struck by another car, leaving his fate unknown. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and why not check out this recommended video while you're at it.